This is the strategy that I used to make my first million in sports betting. Now, it's a strategy that I have claimed as the Linemaker method. The reason why I've claimed this is because it's exactly what the name of everything dictates. You're making the line and adjusting it according to what you want it to be and what's going to give you an edge rather than what the sports books are just going to be putting out there for you, which are the sucker bets. So, it is going to be implied probability. Okay, implied probability is the odds that the sportsbook gives you straight up. So let's say, for example, minus 150. Minus 150 has a 60% implied probability. Okay, so if you just played minus 150s all the time, you should hit around 60%. That's the break-even mark. Now, compare this to true probability. True probability means what's the actual chance that this is actually going to occur. The actual chance of this occurring, okay? Because it is different from this number right here. And this is where the line maker method comes into play, and this is where you're able to make your own line to give yourself an edge. So the true probability, let's say, for example, let's say the true probability of this play right here is actually 66%, okay? That means that the odds should actually be minus 200. There's a discrepancy there, as you can see. Here's your discrepancy. Okay? The sportsbook has it at minus 150, where it actually should be listed as minus 200. Now, people think, wouldn't the sportsbooks realize that? Wouldn't they realize that, there's a discrepancy there, that there's an actual probability of, 6% edge there of something happening? Why would they do that? Well, they don't. Okay? They don't do that. The reason why is because this number here, you're most likely making that number on an alternate line for a player prop. Okay? This is literally being able to make your own lines, hence being the line maker. Okay? You are making your own line to adjust it to give yourself an edge here. So we adjust this number, for example, right here. We take our implied probability, but we adjusted it to where we're actually getting a better true probability there, thus giving us a plus 6% edge. And just like that, long term, you're able to profit because you're giving yourself an edge long term by making your own lines and setting your own lines on alternate lines rather than just going with what the sportsbook gives you. Now, I usually get a lot of questions of people asking, like, does this work with totals? Does it work with money lines? Does it work with spreads? It is very hard, and you have to have literally an AI system to be able to find the edge within the actual total spreads and money lines of plays. This is much easier with player props. Okay? Player props, it comes down to what? That one player either doing something or he's not. Not a whole team combined having to be able to do certain things. So it's way easier with player props to adapt this method to be able to give yourself an edge long. Now let's go ahead and use an example here. All right, let's use the NFL. Let's use passing yards for Patrick Mahomes. Okay, let's say Patrick Mahomes, his implied probability to go over 225 plus passing yards is minus 150, okay, which is 60% implied probability. Now, if we go and actually look at the statistics of Patrick Mahomes for, let's say, the current season or the year before, you could use either, depending on when you're watching this video, obviously. And if you look, and let's just say, for example, that he ends up being able to surpass this number in certain matchups, because that's what it comes down to. It doesn't come down to overall. It comes down to certain matchups that he's going against. Okay, that's where the difference comes. It's not just overall, because there's apps that give you overall probability of stuff, but that's just overall in general. You have to find within the matchup that makes sense. Okay, so let's say within the matchup that makes sense, he hits this actually at 66% of the time. So like I said, up here, that line should obviously be minus 200, but it's not. Okay, you found it a sportsbook at minus 150, so you take the over 225 plus yards and you give yourself a plus 6% edge, just like that. And when you replicate that over and over and over the course of years, that is exactly how you're able to stack your bankroll and literally get on the blueprint and the path to making $1 million. Now, I've made a set of rules that literally you need to apply to be able to get to that $1 million mark and actually be successful with sports betting. And I'm about to reveal those to you right now. If you guys want the plays that fit this criteria day in and day out, every single day, sent to you directly, make sure you guys click the link in the description. Now, these are my rules to success when it comes to sports betting on your climb to make $1 million within sports betting. Now, the first rule was only bet plus edge plays. Those are plays that literally give me a shot at the best opportunity of winning. All right? What that means is you're taking implied probability and true probability and putting those together to give yourself a plus edge. If that doesn't happen, then I wasn't playing it. Okay? I was not playing it because some of the times I would think a play is going to win just in my gut, but real life on paper with math, there was a negative edge behind it, and then long term that would make me lose. So I realized I had to make that transition to realizing what plus edge was and what that meant, and how to mash your implied probability that the odds give you from the sports book to the true probability of that event actually occurring, and giving myself a plus opportunity to be able to set myself up for the best bet possible. Number 2 was making sure that I'm playing all sports throughout the year. A lot of the times, like back when I first started, I just wanted to do football just like everybody else. And everybody's like, oh man, like football's the best. That's the best sport to bet. It's most exciting, right? Well, when you realize football actually only happens once really a week, because that's when all the games actually happen, it's nearly impossible to just rely on that. You have to be able to bet on all the sports. You have to. You have to bet on all of them because you have to stay consistent each and every day. Which brings me to actually number 3. Number 3 is being consistent. Because if you're not consistent, then you might miss days where there were plays that you should have been betting. You have to be consistent with it. You can't be lazy. Okay, if you're lazy with it and you don't treat this like an actual job or like another business, guess what? You are going to end up losing money and you're just going to donate. This happens time and time again because when you don't stay consistent, and that's with anything in life, not just sports betting, but when you don't stay consistent with something, you become lazy, you slack off, and guess what? Negative results end up happening. Number 4 was don't tilt. This is a big one, all right? This is tilting / chasing losses. This is the biggest part because even if you have the right plays and you're staying consistent, one day where you tilt and you chase a bunch of losses because you can't handle taking a losing day, that's the day where you lose everything. And me coming up in sports betting, that's happened to me time and time again, where I chased a bunch of losses literally within one day and blew a ton of money just trying to chase the one loss that I occurred because I couldn't handle the emotion of taking a losing day. So you have to master this part of the process, which is not tilting. You have to, because if you don't master that part, you will lose a bunch of money. None of the other stuff matters if you can't control the emotion of not tilting. I had to make sure that I realized there's going to be losing days. You can't win every single day. It's going to happen. Sometimes you can't win every single month. There might be a month where you actually take a loss and you have to work 30, 31 days of doing this to end up actually losing money. That's the toughest part, but that's real life. And that's actually what happens when you're doing this at a professional level, is you have to understand how to lose. If you can't take losing and understand how to lose, that is going to kill you. Winning is easy, right? Winning feels great. You feel like you're on top of the world when you keep winning. But when you're losing, that's what defines you. Number 5 was sports books. Now, you need to have multiple sports books to do this at a high level. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to it. There's just none. You have to have multiple sports books. Because if you're trying to literally be a professional sports bettor at one sports book, you're not going to make $1 million at one sports book because they're not going to allow you to do that because the sports book will cut you off. And I learned that the hard way because coming up, I was sticking to 1 or 2 sports books. Then my unit size gradually started getting bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, they completely shut me off because I was getting too high of a unit size and consistently winning. They don't want your action anymore. So they just kick you off the platform or they limit you till you don't want to play it anymore. So you have to have multiple sports books and multiple accounts. Whether the accounts be in your name, your wife's name, or sibling's name, anything like that, you have to have multiple accounts to do this at a high level to think you even have a shot to make $1 million doing this. Now, number 6, not only do you need a bunch of accounts, but you need to prime those accounts. Now, what does that mean? Priming my accounts for sportsbooks. So what this means is you literally have to bet within the sportsbook, but you also have to make stupid bets here and there. So what I mean by that, so to connect the dots here. Now this might sound a bit silly, but this is what you actually have to do. So let's say you're betting, you get to the point you're betting $1,000 a game, okay? And you have it split up between multiple sports books, but you got 4 sports books, you're doing $250 a piece at each sports book on a bet. Well, even at that level, you could trigger a certain flag within the sports book if that's all you're doing. So to prime that account, what you have to do is, like, if you're betting $1,000 unit size, you would take $5, all right? Take $5 and you would do one of those 10-team long shot parlays. That's gonna lose, okay? It's gonna lose. But what that does is that makes the sportsbook algorithm make you look like a amateur. Because, like, no professional sports bettor is betting this, okay? They're not doing those. So if you throw a couple of those in here and there, they think, oh, this guy's, he's still trying to hit those parlays, like he's still an amateur bettor or whatnot. So it throws the algorithm off a little bit on the sportsbook. So it kind of primes your account. That's what it does. It primes your account to make you seem like you're an amateur rather than a sharp bettor. Now, number 7 is compounding your bankroll. Now, this is the key to making that $1 million. This right here, okay? This is the key to making that $1 million is compounding your bankroll. Because if, let's say you start out with $1,000, $2,000, I mean, it's going to take you literally years, decades to be able to get to the level where you're betting to make $1 million, okay? Because if you stick to a same unit size, starting at $1,000, starting at $2,000, I mean, you're only betting $20 a game, $30 a game. Think how long that's going to take for you to get up to that level. So compounding your bankroll is what you have to do month in and month out. Now I'm going to show you guys exactly using a calculator how that works and how the different bankrolls, how long it's going to take for you to be able to make $1 million. Alright, so I want you guys to see here. This is a calculator that I literally made. It's a compound interest calculator. Alright, this is to pretty much get your projection of how long it's going to take you to be able to make a certain amount of money. So let's say you're starting out with a $1,000 bankroll here. Alright, let's say you're starting out with a $1,000 bankroll. And let's say your unit size is 2% of that. You know, that's $20 per unit, okay? Units gained per month. Let's do modest, all right? Modest, this is something that's obtainable by everybody, which is 5 units, all right? 5 units can be obtainable by anybody. So let's take a look at the year plan here. This is over 5 years. You take that $1,000 bankroll, you compound it each month. So that means every single start of every single month, you take your overall bankroll, and now you're betting 2% of that, okay? And over the time frame of 5 years, you're at 300,000. Now let's see, 6 years. 6 years, you've made it up to nearly that $1 million mark. Now, the biggest part of this is obviously the time frame, right? You have to stay consistent. You have to do this for 6 years. But imagine taking what investment is going to take you $1,000 and in 6 years produce $1 million. Not too many, right? Not too many. But you have to have the right strategy and you have to know exactly what you're doing to be able to produce 5 units per month. Now let's go ahead and use an example of a $5,000 bankroll. Okay, let's say a $5,000 bankroll at a 2% unit size. Same thing here, 5 units per month, which is modest. Look at the 6-year time frame here. You're taking 5,000, you turn that into 4.7 million. All right, it's obviously not going to take that long to get to $1 million. So it's going to take you about 4.5 years, okay? Because at 5 years, you're at 1.5 million off a $5,000 bankroll. So about 4.5 years, you're able to literally get to that level, okay? As you can see here, year 4, you'd be at $500,000, and then probably around right here in the middle, okay? 4.5 years, you'd reach that $1 million mark. But this is literally at the most modest level, okay, of making 5 units per month. Anybody can make 5 units per month if you just have the right basic strategy together. If you have any strategy that I've taught you whatsoever, literally you could make 5 units a month just off of that. Now let's go ahead and discuss the mind, okay, along this journey, because this is huge as well. Like I said, the emotion that comes into play here, what you're going to deal with. You're going to deal with the ups and the downs of sports betting. The winning, the losing. That's what it is, right? This is winning and this is losing. That's how it goes. You have to deal with the ups and downs, the emotional roller coaster. What is sports betting, okay? Because that is really what's going to define you and be able to keep you on the train to stay consistent. Because being consistent is the most important part of this process. Because if you're not consistent, guess what? you're going to lose everything. Okay? And if you're not emotionally in control of your mind, you're going to lose everything. It's very important. Okay? So to control this emotion, you have to realize this number one thing. Okay? Number one thing right here. There's always tomorrow. Okay? Realize that. There's always tomorrow. You have to realize this. There's always going to be another set of games tomorrow. So there's no reason to empty the tank today. As long as you realize that and you literally bake this into your brain, guess what? You're going to survive and you're going to be able to literally take any size bankroll and build it up to more money than you ever seen doing anything else. But you have to remind yourself there's always tomorrow. Because most of the time when I was coming up in sports betting, I would have that feeling on a day where there's like, you would think you have to make everything back in that one day, or you have to make a ton of money in that one day, and then like, oh, well, maybe, there is no tomorrow. But guess what? There's always more games to play. There's always another opportunity the next day. So as long as you bake this into your brain that there's always another game tomorrow, that it may take you a week to get back maybe some losses, but guess what? As long as you stay with the system and you stay literally consistent and don't let the emotion and the ups and downs take control of your mind, you will be successful. There's no doubt about it. But you have to literally follow the exact rules that I taught you and the strategy that I taught you in this video, because that is how you will be successful.